Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm happy to be here to share that our efforts are working. COVID-19 case counts are steadily coming down, and over 7 million people have now been vaccinated. Thank you to everyone doing their part to help pull us through. Clearly, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It hasn't been easy. We've all worked hard to get here, and we should take pride in what we've all accomplished together. Our frontline workers who don't have the luxury of staying home are a big part of Ontario's success. To these heroes, we say thank you. Thank you to the factory workers for making the goods that all of us rely on. Thank you to the truck drivers for keeping our supply chains running. And thank you to the grocery store workers keeping our shelves full. You are the hardworking champions that are getting us through this pandemic. Working together, workers, labor leaders, employers, and government, we are defeating this deadly virus. Only a few weeks ago, the numbers weren't looking so good, so we focused our efforts on where they were needed. Since then, over 100 officers have been visiting food processing plants, factories, warehouses, and distribution centers this month across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. And I'm pleased to share what we found. Workers wearing masks properly, increased cleaning protocols, and buildings with capacity limits. The numbers speak for themselves. In the past week, we visited over 700 workplaces as part of this campaign. 85% do not need a follow-up visit, and only 9 tickets were issued. This reinforces what we are seeing every day, that people are following the rules and it's paying off. The consistent progress we're making on defeating COVID-19 is due in large part to the dedication of our frontline workers. So we must remain vigilant. They deserve nothing less. Every single worker deserves to come home safely after a hard day's work. And no son or daughter should have to worry their parent is going to be harmed while earning the money to provide for them and put food on their family's table. We know people are increasingly optimistic, but we can't take anything for granted. We owe it to each other to stay safe. This COVID-19 safety campaign is just one of the ways we're promoting workplace safety to build on the encouraging results we're seeing as case counts decrease. Officers are also sharing resources about rapid antigen screening programs, our unlimited job-protected leave, and the 23 paid sick days available for workers. And most recently, we improved our Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program with a new system that allows us to choose the workers Ontario needs most. Right now, this means we approved a dozen healthcare workers to come and join our front lines, including a family doctor and PSWs. Every set of hands makes a real difference. The actions we're taking are helping stop the spread of this virus. We are turning the corner. We are seeing the results. We are on the right track, and there are better days ahead. Thank you, and please stay safe, everyone. And I'd be happy to take some questions.
First question, please.
As a reminder, please press star 1 if you have any questions. First question from Colin DeMello at CTV News. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Minister.
Hi,
Businesses that have opened and closed time and time again, they've had to invest a lot in PPE, plexiglass, and a whole host of other things to make their businesses safe. I'm wondering, as they eventually look forward to reopening again, what types of things will they have to invest in order to keep customers and employees safe? Do you have some kind of an idea of some of the materials they will need?
Well, I will say that the small businesses in particular have done a great job in keeping their workers safe. Earlier this year, we sent literally hundreds of inspectors out to educate businesses. We launched a small business support program through our ministry to help them understand what they need to do to keep their workers and customers safe. I think most of them are well positioned to reopen when that time comes and it's safe to do so. But I want all businesses out there to know that we're here for them. Our Ministry of Labour Training and Skills Development has put up more than 200 guidelines and resources and tip sheets and posters and videos in dozens of languages to help businesses and to help their workers. All of these resources are available at ontario.ca/COVID safety. But I would say that most employers know what they need to do to keep their workers safe. I mean, we're more than a year into this pandemic, but our inspectors will be there to assist them, to educate them, and of course, make sure that the rules are being followed.
Follow up?
Thank you. You are obviously, part of the cabinet discussions that will be happening about that reopening plan. I'm wondering if you can kind of take us through some of those internal discussions in terms of what you guys are looking at. Are you guys waiting for definitive numbers in terms of the thresholds, the metrics, or whether it should be a regional reopening or a sector-specific reopening? Can you just kind of take us into those back rooms and give us an idea of what the conversation is like right now? What do you guys need to have in place in order to get to where we need to get to?
Well, certainly our government's number one priority is to protect the health and well-being of all of the people in this province. We have to defeat this third wave of COVID-19. I can tell you, Colin, that my responsibility as Minister of Labour Training and Skills Development is to ensure that workers are kept safe. And we will be, visiting and assisting businesses that are open at any point, at any given day. So that's my job, is to ensure that workers are protected and workplaces are kept safe. And we're on a mission every day with our inspectors to do just that.
Next question from Richard Southern at 680 News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Good afternoon. Just picking up a little bit there on Colin on the reopening plan. I mean, we're going to hear Quebec later today. Saskatchewan has said it intends to open almost all of its economy and activities by mid-July. Is that what we're going to see here in Ontario? Will everything be open by mid-July? What's this reopening plan going to look like, Minister?
Well, look, I'm sure the Premier will be excited to share that plan with all of the people in Ontario, but we're making great progress as a province. I mean, the numbers today are very encouraging, and well over 7 million people now have at least received one dose, 7 million vaccinations given out. That's how we're going to get through this third wave and move forward. I'm optimistic. What we've seen when we visited those workplaces that I mentioned in hotspots, I mean, 85% of those businesses don't need a follow-up visit because they're making huge progress in keeping workers safe. That's my job as Minister of Labour Training and Skills Development. So we're going to keep ensuring that people get vaccinated and we keep people safe.
Thanks, Minister. I'm sure everyone's glad to hear compliance is up, but I'm wondering, where are you still seeing infractions? What type of infractions are you seeing, and where are you seeing them right now?
No, that's a great question. I mean, we continue to work with local public health units. We're visiting, as we speak, warehouses, distribution centers, food processing plants, and more in these hotspot zones, a real focus to ensure that COVID-19 isn't entering workplaces and keeping those workers safe. 50% of the cases in workplaces are actually in these types of businesses. So that's why we're visiting. But again, all the signs are really, really encouraging. As a province, we can be really hopeful that there are better days ahead very soon.
Next question.
Next question from Jeff Gray at the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Oh, hi, thanks. Hi, Minister.
Hi, Jeff.
I wanted to ask if there's any update on the sick days. Do you have any numbers, indication of how many sick days have been taken? I guess you'd have an indication of how many had been applied for by businesses for reimbursement. Can you fill us in any update on the sick days?
Sure. I'm happy to say that we brought forward a comprehensive plan of 23 days available to workers between the federal government's program and ours. And I see other provinces are now following our initiative. I can tell you we were staffed and ready to go at our customer service line. We had more than 200 operators available to assist workers. And I can tell you that the calls have been fairly quiet. I mean, we're in the hundreds, not thousands of calls coming in asking questions about what's available to workers. But I make a commitment that as the data comes in and we have that data, that we'll be very transparent about it. But my message to workers out there, if you're sick, stay home. We've got your backs, and we'll be there until we defeat COVID-19 once and for all.
Follow up?
One issue that had been raised, and I hadn't heard if it had been resolved, was sort of an incompatibility between the federal and the provincial programs, which was that if you take your three provincial sick days, you then don't qualify till the following week for the federal program. Is that the case, or has that been rectified in some way?
Well, look, we moved to fill in the gaps with the federal program. As you know, Jeff, with the federal program, if you miss less than 50% of a week, you don't get paid. We step forward to fix that gap. But when it comes to the federal government, I mean, again, the biggest gap still remaining is the federal government's plan that's available that's paying less than minimum wage to workers in Ontario. As you recall, we offered to double that program from $500 a week to $1,000 a week for 4 weeks. We would pay 100% of that cost, and the federal government has not taken us up on that offer. Again, we call on the federal government. They say they want to help us out. Fix this program. It's on them to do that. We'll pay the shot.
Next question.
Next question from Sarah Mujtahedzadeh at Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister. You mentioned that employers, by and large, know the precautions they need to take to keep their workplaces safe, as reflected in the figures you've talked about today in terms of compliance. But as you know, a number of occupational hygienists and infectious disease experts have repeatedly said in recent months that these measures recommended by the province and being enforced by the Ministry of Labour are not sufficient to prevent super spreader events in many workplaces. So I'm wondering, with talk of reopening, what additional safety measures will the ministry be requiring of workplaces?
Well, we continue to work with the Ministry of Health and the local public health units to ensure that workers are kept safe. Every employer out there at this point in the pandemic knows their responsibilities under the Reopening Ontario Act and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. As I said earlier, I mean, we put up, as you know, Sarah, more than 200 resources for businesses to follow. But I can say, overwhelmingly, the majority of businesses have done a good job. Of course, there's always ones out there that fall short. And that's why, for example, we've hired more than 100 new inspectors to go out there, which brings it to the largest number of inspectorate in provincial history under this Conservative government. So we're going to continue to be visiting workplaces, working with local public health units to ensure that safety standards are being met.
Follow up?
Have you or any Ministry of Labour officials been involved personally in recent weeks with discussions with the Science Table or PDAC about how best to tackle aerosol transmission in workplaces?
Again, we continue to work with local public health units and the Ministry of Health to ensure that all necessary protocols are put in place. The Occupational Health and Safety Act is there. Employers know what's in that act and the serious consequences if they don't follow the act and break the law. But again, most are doing a good job. And I do want to give a shout out to our inspectors. They really have been doing heroic work, educating businesses out there, taking a customer service approach. They've done, our ministry inspectors alone, well over 50,000 inspections and investigations since COVID-19 hit Ontario. They shut down 93 unsafe workplaces and job sites. Most recently, that we know. That's what the data shows. So they have been doing a heroic work in obviously some very challenging situations. So I do want to say thank you on behalf of Ontario and workers to those inspectors.
Next question.
Next question from Farah Morelli at CBC. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to ask you about rapid COVID-19 testing in workplaces. I know that earlier this month, the province had launched this rapid screening initiative along with the portal, but there still appears to be a very large number of tests that are sitting unused. According to the federal numbers, only about 2 million of the 11 million tests that were supplied to Ontario have actually been used. Given that there's so many calls for increased workplace testing, especially in essential workplaces, why are we still seeing so many of these tests sitting unused?
Well, I know literally hundreds of thousands have been deployed. In fact, at one point, we were over 5.5 million in total that have been deployed to workplaces in Ontario. I believe very strongly that this is a really important tool in the toolbox to keep workers safe and to prevent COVID-19 from entering workplaces. I actually saw firsthand a couple of months ago the rapid testing being used on construction sites, and it just happened the day that I visited a construction site that had hundreds of workers working on it every day. A few hours before I got there, a worker tested positive, and they sent that construction worker to a testing assessment center, and the worker was sent home. So that protected workers on that job site. Our ministry was responsible for a number of antigen and rapid tests on construction sites. The last count was over 150,000 deployed to construction. It's been really, really successful. I thank the employers and our unions that we partnered with in construction, and of course the thousands of workers that are using these tests. This recent initiative is handled through the Ministry of Economic Development in Minister Fideli's office.
Last question.
And just as a follow-up to that, you mentioned obviously millions have been deployed, but the numbers still seem to show that they're not being used. Are you hearing from workplaces that they're finding them cumbersome, or there are questions or issues? Why do you think we're not actually understanding that millions have been deployed? Why are we not seeing them actually being used in the numbers that reflect the supply?
I know a number of employers have stepped up in the last month to expand rapid testing in workplaces across Ontario, particularly in the hotspots. I've heard really positive feedback. Again, it's really critical that we use every tool in the toolbox to prevent COVID-19 from entering workplaces and job sites, for example, in construction. I saw firsthand just how great they work. And it's an important tool to defeat COVID-19, and I'm proud that they're getting deployed every single day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a great day.